Good afternoon. I want to welcome our guests to Columbia University, and I also want to recognize the Harriman Institute for helping to make this event possible. Let me begin with a special acknowledgement to Mrs. Marina Poroshenko, the First Lady of Ukraine. Please stand so we can acknowledge you. And Mr. Valery Chaly, Ambassador of Ukraine to the United States. Please let us acknowledge you. Assembling the roster of heads of state for the Columbia World Leaders Forum is a process that occurs over several months. As we explored whether it would be possible for Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to accept our invitation, we were, of course, keenly aware of the larger significance of events unfolding there. What we could not have known was that this morning the President would be addressing the UN General Assembly, or that Ukraine's pressing concerns would be moved once again to the center of the world stage after yesterday's appearances at the UN by Presidents Obama and Putin. President Poroshenko, thank you for making time to be with us today and for coming to Columbia to address our university community after addressing the world community. Your comments before the General Assembly about freedom, peace, and respect for territorial integrity deserve the attention of all who are concerned about the future of our global society. We also noted your repudiation of propaganda and fake news and your call to strengthen the open sharing of information across borders, a subject of personal importance to me and to many others at Columbia. Ukraine has long been buffeted by the cross-cutting imperative to maintain strong relationships with both Europe and Russia. In 2013, the pressures of preserving that balance became unsustainable when the process of securing recognition by the European Union was derailed, leading to pro-Western protests first in the streets of Kiev and then across the country. The protests, which had begun peacefully, devolved into violence and ultimately gave rise to conflict with Russian separatists in the territories of eastern Ukraine. The instability created an opportunity for Crimea's annexation, and that opportunity was seized. The human toll of these events has been heavy, with an estimated 8,000 dead, 1.4 million people displaced, and the catastrophic damage to the Ukrainian economy. Unfortunately, the ceasefire agreement between Ukraine and Russia announced last February has not fulfilled the goal of ending this violence. President Poroshenko emerged from this turmoil as the leader of his nation, with a mandate for reform and a formidable set of challenges, including stabilizing an economy in crisis and eliminating deep-seated political corruption. There are initial signs of hard-won progress. President Poroshenko has created several national anti-corruption agencies and has proposed reforms to Ukraine's constitution that would decentralize political authority. This latter initiative seeks to mitigate the corruption of elites through a populist transfer of authority to regional bodies. He also continues to advocate the benefits of membership in NATO, a goal of his since serving as Ukraine's foreign minister, and the economic advantages of a closer relationship with Europe. It is certainly an encouraging development to see that in recent weeks, Ukraine's primary creditors have agreed to forgive 20% of the nation's foreign debt. Despite these steps, Ukraine faces a volatile present and an uncertain future. The decisions made now by President Poroshenko, the Ukrainian government, and the international community not only hold great consequence for the lives of 45 million Ukrainians, but for all of global society. For our part, we are obligated to pay close attention, gain a nuanced appreciation of these issues, and support the peaceful and productive resolution of Ukraine's tensions in ways available to a scholarly community. Please join me in welcoming Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko.
Dear President Bollinger, dear students and faculty members, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a great pleasure for me to visit this beautiful campus here in Manhattan, home to so many prominent minds that include Nobel and Pulitzer Prize winner, as well the Academy Awards winners. This university also educated many world leaders and remain a haven for the innovation and human strive for the excellence and freedom. I have an honor to be engaged in a dynamic dialogue with the several outstanding Columbia University alumni. One of them, with whom I have a pleasure to speak yesterday morning, yesterday afternoon, and yesterday evening, is United States President Barack Obama, with whom we coordinate our efforts to safeguard peace and promote democracy in the world. This is not a joke. We speak after we hear a very strong signal for global peace, freedom and democracy from the speech of President Obama in the United Nations. We speak with him before meeting with Putin, after meeting with Putin, and coordinate our efforts in the evening. And this is a real partnership, real fighting for peace, freedom and democracy. We have lots of other leaders of states, alumni of Columbia University, and it's a real great pleasure for me to speak with them, and today I'm proud to be the first Ukrainian president addressing the World Leaders Forum at Columbia University. I extend a special thanks to the Harriman Institute for the co-sponsorship of this event and for the efforts in studying and teaching Ukrainian history, political and social affairs, language and culture here at Columbia. Thank you very much indeed for that. Today I take it as an honor, but also as a duty to draw your attention of future policymakers and opinion leaders to development in and around Ukraine, to significance of Ukraine for global peace and its role as a defender of the democratic values, to Ukraine's incredible capacity in technology, innovation and human capital. By the way, do you know that the helicopter, passenger jet, space shuttle, genetic code, cornea transplantation and laser diode were invented by ethnic Ukrainians? Ukrainians are also among co-founder and inventor in Apple, IMAX, PayPal, Google, WhatsApp, and many other things. Really, they gave birth to many innovations that have changed our lives in the past year. This is something which makes me feel proud And this is something I would like to be associated with Ukraine brand in the international arena. And that's why when I spent these 4 days, believe me, these days was one of the busiest days in my life, even being the president in a state of war, being a president of the country in a state of war, I am proud to be here together with you. Even during the 4 days, I catch a serious cold. Now I have a 38.5 degrees temperature. I think that I should be together with you because this is very important for me, this meeting with the future global leaders. Of course, it's very interesting events, the General Assembly, 70th General Assembly. Can you imagine that today in New York is the record high for all the time number of head of states, chairman of the government, and other leaders. First of all, it is 108 head of states today in New York. Of course, they create some traffic problem, but that's a unique opportunity to discuss the future, our global future, how we can reform the United Nations, how we can modernize the Security Council, how the world can meet a new criteria of peace, democracy, freedom, and security. Why it's happened? Because last year, in February, after brutal annexation of Crimea by Russia, after the aggression on the east of Ukraine by Russian regular troops, the world is changed. All post-war global security system is not working anymore. Because it was designed when 5 permanent members of Security Council can guarantee peace, stability, democracy, and security. For me, it's hardly to imagine how Stalinist Russia or Stalinist Soviet Union can guarantee democracy and security. But sometimes it works. But now, when one of the permanent members of Security Council of the United Nations is an aggressor, violating international law, violating bilateral and multilateral agreement, violating Budapest Memorandum, Helsinki Act, all the international law principle, attacking my country, brutally destroyed the territorial integrity, sovereignty, independence of my country. And the effective form of reaction, the global security system, simply cannot demonstrate. Of course, during the last 15 months, this is the time of my presidency, we make almost enormous things. When I become a president, Ukraine don't have an army at all. When we ask our partners, international partners, to help us, we were rejected because we have an answer. Okay, Mr. President, you don't have an army. Half of your army is corruptive. Half of your army is agent of FSB, Russian Security Service. And this means just an absence of trust. Nobody trusts Ukraine. Just 15 months ago. And within these 15 months, we built up one of the strongest army and most competent, with a unique combat experience, army on the continent, defending our land and stopped one of the biggest military machines on the continent. Defending our own land, being patriotic, supplied with the all necessary equipment, and do almost enormous things. Within the same period of the time, we build up the trust and create a unique pro-Ukrainian coalition delivering the very important information that we're fighting not only for our territorial integrity, not only for our independence, not only for our sovereignty, but this is the fighting for the global democracy, global security, global freedom. And within the first few months, we completely changed the situation. And the same way, like I will remember the whole life, my today's speech on the General Assembly, the same way I will remember the events which take place in Washington on the 18th of September last year, when I have an address to the United States Congress and Senate. Believe me, this is a unique feeling when you have such a strong bipartisan support of United States Congress, which representing the people of the United States, which was demonstrated to me as a representative of the Ukrainian people. That is a unique feeling that we are united. And that is the best evidence. Nobody can break Ukrainian when they have such overwhelming support through the world. And we very much valued this trust. And that helped us a lot. And when anybody asks me what we need now as Ukrainians, I think we need just two things. Point number one, we need a transatlantic unity. And second, solidarity with Ukraine. Of course, we need a political, advisory, military technical, and financial support. But stopping the enemy in Ukraine, we also launched a very ambitious reform program. I make a statement that the war is not the reason not to reform my country. And we do many things which was not happening for 24 years of our history. We launched a very powerful anti-corruption reform. We launched, as the President said, ambitious, very difficult decentralization constitutional reform. Just delivering, the first time in our history, we delivered the power from the President, from the government, to the local authorities, giving them money and responsibility. Make a government closer to the people. And that is already very effective and immediately bring the results. Can you imagine that when I become a president, the old militia has just 7% of trust? How you can preserve law and order if nobody believes you? This is very difficult for the people and very difficult for the militia. And I said that we launch a new police structure. I invite from Georgia the Ekas Guladze, fantastic lady who has a unique experience in Georgia to build up new police because we don't have a time to learn our own. I granted her the Ukrainian citizenship, appointed her as the first deputy of our Minister of Interior, and said that within 3 months I need the new police. Do you know who was the instructor for the new police? American policemen. We invite hundreds of the best American cops to train our most ambitious young boys and girls. Preferably that they don't have an experience previous to serving the old police. Within the 4 months, we're finishing the courses. And 2 months ago, that's appeared on the streets of Kiev. 6 weeks ago, that's appeared in the Odessa, Lviv, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk. 2 weeks ago, that's appeared in Poltava, Uzhgorod, Kramatorsk, different other cities. And the things completely, immediately changed. Do you know that now current level of trust to these people, to these policemen? 80%. Miracle. People start to believe and seeing practical results of the reform. 24 years in my country, when we talking about the fighting against corruption, that was just a blah, blah, blah. We launched a very interesting process. I create absolutely transparently, together with the parliament, government, NGO, we create a unique commission which appointed the new director of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. With the same transparent procedure, by the competition, using the polygraph, very sophisticated test, we appoint the 70 new detectives. By the way, the salary for these detectives is 3 times higher than the Ukrainian president. This is a unique possibility to keep them free and to have that very high level of motivation for them. Because I need every single person of the future 700 detectives. Now we're finishing the procedure for appointing the special anti-corruption prosecutor, the same way. In the commission we have a representative from the Federal Police of the United States, the chief anti-corruption is from the European Union, and some representative of NGO. And within 1 month we will have a special anti-corruption prosecutor. And within 1 month we take all the corruption cases from the old prosecutor general to the new Anti-Corruption Bureau, demonstrating the effectiveness of our anti-corruption fighting. We do that just in half of the year. But Ukraine waiting for that for 24 years. And I have no doubt that even now, during this structure, only during last 2 weeks, it was arrested for the corruption. Members of parliament, governor of the regional and district administration, chief of the central agency, chief of the, no, not chief, but top officer of the security services, militia, and different other persons. Thank you very much for the support. That's thank you. And this is effectiveness of the work of the old structure, but I want to build the new, completely new system of which would be functioning in Ukraine. We have a very big problem with the old legal system, because immediately when anybody arrested, the courts is taking the money and release them. And that's why I immediately initiated a constitutional reform for the legal and court system. We initiated now the tax reform, deregulation, creating unique investment climate. We're launching the special program for the privatization. And just to receive the trust, I said that my first decree was to create the open competition for the mobile company. Can you imagine that 1 year ago we don't have a 3G telecommunication? And within a few months we arranged the open competition, most transparent, which never have in Ukraine. And now we're launching already the process for the LTE and the 4th generation of the communication. We make a unique reform in the security and defense sector, create the new capable army. Do you know my recipe? How can I do that? I use a volunteer. The very powerful movement of the people in Ukraine when we don't have an army. 80% of Ukrainians helping army by any means. Somebody send the money, somebody leave everything and go to the Minister of Defense, helping me to building up the new ministry. That was the key factor. Cooperation with the NGO, with the non-governmental organization, with the volunteers who helped me to crush the old system and to build up new, and I promise, most effective system, even in such a sensitive area like security and defense. We do a lot of positive things. What I need for that, how can I do that? I need leaders, new, effective, young. And when we created the government, it was very difficult to find out a motivation for the people, for the old bureaucrat to work as a minister. especially when a minister receives $200 a month. President receives $600. And I think that, okay, we can survive 1 or 2 years. We can create the transparent salary for the whole public sector. We need urgently reform of the public administration. But please, new people, young, ambitious, who can work for Ukraine, come to me and let's create a team for changes in Ukraine. And I invite in my government one of the most famous American investment banker, Ukrainian origin, Natalka Yureska, immediately give her Ukrainian citizenship and appoint her as a Minister of Finance. Within 5 months, we provide absolutely new program for the cooperation with the International Monetary Fund. Can you imagine that in February we have $5 billion of the golden currency reserve for the 45 million country? We are in a deep crisis and have $5 billion golden currency reserve. And after 7 months, we already have above 13. And that's what we do with the country in a state of war. You cannot find any example in the world that country in a state of war who should finance the military expenditure, finance your army, finance your defense. And we're spending 5% of our GDP, which we've never done before. Previous government killing our army. And at the same time, we're cutting the budget deficit and have it only 3%. Beforehand, we have 12. We provide a unique program for the restructuring of our national debt, making 20% haircut and keeping the trust for the investor. We're cleaning up our financial and banking system, make it much more healthier. Can you imagine? We do everything of that within 7 months by the new team of the reformers. Having the very strong motivation, patriotic, technocratic, decisively changing our country. That's why, if you're asking me what I need the most, I need leaders. That's why I'm here today. Thank you. And because of it, I have a new meeting at 6 o'clock and I have a limited time, I prefer to have a Q&A session, just not to keeping by my presentation too much time. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Cooley. I am the director of the Harriman Institute here at Columbia University, and it is my great pleasure and privilege to moderate the Q&A this session. I also want to take this time to thank our students who are here and our students who are watching via the live streaming, as well as faculty and students at Yale University, at Harvard University. And we are all very much committed to promoting higher educational reform, to supporting you in these efforts, and fostering cooperative networks with Ukraine. We'll be your partners. Now, just a few ground rules. There are 2 mics. Please line up behind them. Please state your name clearly, your school and affiliation here. Please keep your question concise and short. And please realize that you are on the record and that, in fact, this is being live streamed out of here. So let's take the first question here. Yes.
Mr. President, my name is Peter Zalmayev. I am a board member of the American Jewish Committee, director of the Eurasian Democracy Initiative, and I'm an alum of SIPA and a native of Donetsk, which is in the occupied territory of eastern Ukraine. We, as Ukrainian Americans and as members of the American Jewish community, we appreciate all that you've done in the cause of inter-ethnic harmony in Ukraine, what you've done as a leader in the face of the greatest adversity that Ukraine has faced in its post-Soviet history. As President Vladimir Putin demonstrated in his diplomatic outreach in the last few days, he's very eager to shift the world's attention away from the fiasco that Russia has suffered in Ukraine and away from that and to the Middle East, to Syria. So my question is, what difficulties have you encountered in trying to bring the attention back to Ukraine, to keep it there, and what would you suggest that we do as members of the Ukrainian American community, as Colombia, to help you with that task? Thank you.
First of all, thank you for being here today. This demonstrating that you are deeply involved in the Ukrainian matter. Frankly speaking, when we start this fighting against Russian aggression, that was one of the most difficult times in my life. We pay a huge price for that. We lost 2,144 soldiers. 6,000 civilians were killed by Russian soldiers or by Russian weapons. Most of them are from Donetsk. And we should demonstrate that we fighting for our own land, we have an aggression from the Russian side. We should create the global coalition, and my answer would be very simple. Strategically, globally, we need unity and solidarity. And for every single particular cases, we need the assistance for Ukraine, because every single investors which invest money to Ukraine, the assistance we receive from our partners, this is not just an assistance for Ukraine. This is investing in the global security. If you're asking me what exactly we're waiting for example, United States now, I think we need 4 things. Point number 1, we need a strong political support. The same way like it was demonstrated yesterday in the speech of United States President. Point number 2, we need a strong financial support. Why? Because you know better than anybody that on Donbass were concentrated 25% of our industrial output. It is blocked. None of the factory is working. 10% is physically destroyed. And we need to revive our economy. And I'm proud to give you this information that under the prognosis of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, we expect in the year 2016 the economic growth. Third, we need advisory assistance for the reform. We have no right to make any mistake. We should build up for a very short period of time absolutely new country. And that's why immediately after 2 months when I was a president, I signed up the association agreement with the European Union. 1 year ago, synchronously, we ratified it together with the European Parliament, and now we're implementing reform in every single sphere, adapting our legislation with the European Union. Me, together with Ukrainian people, should bring country to Europe. What is significant changes happen in Ukraine? Changes in mind. Because can you imagine that 2 years ago, only 16% of the Ukrainians support integration Ukraine with NATO. 1 year ago, this figure was 50%. Today, this figure is 62%. And having such an overwhelming support by Ukrainian people, we should win. And in that case, what I need from you, find out the effective sector when you personally can be helpful for Ukraine. We need your assistance, we need your help. And thank you for being so open for us. And by the way, for the cooperation with the Jewish organization, yesterday I have a meeting with the American representative of Jewish organization, and I think that is also a very symbolic thing to establish the absolutely effective form of the cooperation with the Jewish organization. Yesterday, it was the 71st anniversary of the Babi Yar, 28th of September. And we agreed on that on the 75th anniversary, we'll build up together with them, with my personal participation, absolutely new museum of the Babi Yar, which would be symbol of the tolerance of the new Ukrainian state. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question on this side, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Cullen Barrett, Columbia student in General Studies. If Russia were to leave Crimea tonight, and as well as Ukraine, would you extend to them the same agreement that stood before, or would you enact a new agreement?
The same agreement as?
I'm talking about for their naval institutions that extended them until 2042.
Okay.
What would become of Crimea in Russia's naval institutions?
Look, our position was absolutely clear. Those who sign up the agreement in year 2010 for the continuation, the naval base for the Crimea for additional years, 25 years until year, it seems to me, 2043. This is the people who betray Ukrainian people. That's create absolutely unique danger having the occupational troops on the Ukrainian territory. From my point of view, this agreement has no any legal basis. And that's create extreme danger for the annexation of the Crimea. But even having the Russian troops on the Crimea, Russia has no any opportunity to have a legal background to continuation these things with a fake referendum. Exactly on the 28th of February, me, at that time member of Parliament of Ukraine, go to Simferopol, being inside or right outside the building of the Crimean Parliament, demonstrating to the whole world that there is no members of Parliament inside. There is no any procedure for declaring so-called fake referendum. There was no referendum. That was just a way how to falsify the judiciary procedure. And that's why this fake referendum don't have any legal subsequences. It was not recognized by any country in the world. And if we will be successful and build up the effective, successful state with the European integration, with a visa-free regime, with a rising economy, with the democracy, with the freedom of media, with the happy people, this is the most effective way, success of Ukraine, to accelerate the return Crimea to Ukraine. And I have no doubt that sooner or later, I prefer sooner, we will have a success. I am absolutely sure that we return Ukrainian sovereignty on the east of my country in quite a short period of time, but Crimea also would be Ukrainian in the very near future. Thank you.
Next question, please.
Hello, Mr. President. Thank you for coming here. You seem very energetic. It was very nice to see you. My name is Ilya. I'm a first-year student at Graduate School of International Public Affairs. In the course of history, there were many outstanding leaders. Some of them, such as Peter the Great for Russia or Bismarck for Germany, were influential figures, while others have been forgotten. How would you like your presidency to be remembered in the history books for future generations, not only in terms of foreign policy with Russia, but in your effect on people's life? Thank you.
That's a very interesting question. When I have a presidential campaign, I was asked, no, it was immediately after presidential election, yeah. I was asked, Mr. President, what is your dream and for whom you want to be after your presidential term? Do you know what was my answer? I said, I'm dreaming to be member of parliament, European Parliament, when Ukraine would be member of European Union. And believe me, if it would be asked, what is the national idea who can unite my nation? This is a European integration. We should pass that Rubicon from the Soviet time. And I would be proud if I would be successful enough to bring my country in the European Union. That is my purpose, absolutely clear, absolutely transparent. Of course, for that, we need that Ukraine meets certain criteria. Maastricht, Copenhagen, some different others, but I need to reform my country in this direction. No matter if European nations are ready to accept Ukraine or not, I am insisting European Union cannot survive without Ukraine. Ukraine, democratic Ukraine, should be in the European Union. I'm optimistic enough that my dream can come in force. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please, our next question.
Thank you for coming, Mr. President. My name is Camilo Deria Rivera Vicerca. I'm here at Columbia College, a sophomore studying political science and business. Now, my question is dealing more towards the end of your speech when you put a very strong emphasis on the youth of your country and how vital it is that you need youthful leaders to come back to the country. My question's relating is more a continuation of what the previous speaker stated was, how long do you see yourself in this position of power as presidency, and when would you feel comfortable of finally handing off that power to the next generation of Ukrainians?
Look, if I can bring tomorrow my country to the European Union, I would be the happiest person to be resigning the day after tomorrow. And you are absolutely right that the unique characteristic of my country now is the new faces, new people. Can you imagine that when I declare the early parliamentary election, because I fully understand that the old parliament, full of communists, full of former radicals, cannot bring my country to the reform, and I declare the new parliamentary election, the rate of new faces in the parliament was more than 60%. This is exactly what I'm happy to see. And for example, today in this distinguished audience, we have one of the most prominent parliamentarian, chief chairman of our Foreign Affairs Committee in the Parliament, Mrs. Gopko, Hanna Hopko. If you can welcome her by applaudisement, this is there. She is a representative of New Ukraine, very energetic, very professional. This is the new leader of Ukraine. And with this team, I have no doubt we will have a successful integration to the European Union. And that is why I want to invite you to be together in one team for change and for reform my country, using all your knowledge and all your experience, not only from Columbia University, but also from Yale, Harvard, Boston, and other distinguished institutions which can hear us now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
How are you doing, President? My name is Miles Grantham. I'm undergrad at Columbia University. You speak of trust. How do you trust American foreign policy when we can't even defeat ISIS in the Middle East? How are we going to protect you from Russia and Putin?
Thank you very much indeed for this question. Point number one, I tell you that I trust American people. We have an overwhelming support from American people. Second, I trust the American Congress and Senate. We have an overwhelming support in Congress and Senate. Third, we're building up the trust with the American administration, and we have a significant changes to the future. Fourth, we are ready to defend our country by ourselves. And this is the most important thing. 86% of Ukrainians are ready to give their lives to defend their motherland. Again, 2 years ago, it was only 16%. Unbelievably. Yes, we need new form of the military and technical cooperation to make our defensive capability much more efficient. But the trust not appeared like that. Trust should be built. And I promise you, that we successfully build up the relation of trust with all our partners, including our American partners. Thank you.
Next question over here.
My name is Oля Yarachkievska, a PhD candidate in genetics at the College of Physicians and Surgeons and a co-founder of Ukrainian-American organization Razum. Mr. President, you spoke about your total commitment to the anti-corruption reform and the complete change of the current system, kleptocratic system. Would you consider following the demand of the multiple anti-corruption NGO organizations and activists and firing the current general prosecutor, Mr. Shokin, who is sabotaging some of the new anti-corruption initiatives? Would you consider appointing a new, fresh face for this very important position in Ukraine?
Thank you very much indeed, Olga. I am proud to say that all the new faces in the General Prosecutor offices was invited by me. I invite Deputy General Prosecutor Mr. David Sakvarelidze. I invited the whole team for the new anti-corruption structure inside the General Prosecutor office, and only unique cooperation between Shokin and Sakvarelidze can bring these results which we have now. What is result now? We're launching the unique test program for the employing the new 700 prosecutors. We, in one moment, resign 4,000 old prosecutors. We're launching a 96 anti-corruption investigation within 4 months by efforts of Mr. Shokin. And I think that this unique form of cooperation is the only thing which can bring the results. But if I find any reason or any corruption suspicious, I would be no any doubts to propose to the Parliament to resign anybody, despite who would be this person, either Mr. Shokin or Mr. Sakvarelidze. I think that the only thing we should need to build up is a new form of the cooperation with the new NGO and to build up the relation of trust. I try to do my best for that. Thank you, Olga.
So our time is limited, so I'm afraid this is going to have to be the last question over here.
Okay. Hi, Mr. President. My name is Lucia Savchik. I'm a first-year master's student at Columbia's School of International and Public Affairs. You've spoken quite a bit about moving forward into the EU and shedding the past of the Soviet Union, and I was wondering if you would comment on the push in the Rada this summer to enact laws of desovietization in removing symbols of Soviet Union from Ukrainian buildings and structures, renaming roads and cities. I see these sentiments as a direct response to Russian aggression, and with Ukraine's dire economic situation, do you see these nationalist actions as a real priority or as political fodder?
I think this is a complex factor. Of course, first we should build up, this is to increase our defensive capability and stop Russia. The second, we should be successful in the reform, in different spheres of the reform. The third, that we should be effective in the Russian propaganda war. We don't speak about that, but I think now this is one of the most dangerous factors in Russian attempt to destabilize the situation inside the country, to remove from Ukrainian the strong hope that we are one team, we team of successful leader, and we can change the country. And of course, I think that the question for the decommunization or desovietization is help us to faster moving to the new times. But I doubt that this is easy to solve. And when the Parliament vote for this law, I happily sign this law and instruct to immediately implement that. I think this is the very good idea. But I doubt that this is the main danger. Main danger from my point of view is local internal stability. Do not give any Russian agent try to attempt to destabilize the situation. Keep country united. Keep the global coalition for Ukraine united and effectively provided the reform. I'm optimist. I think that it can happen. What gives me more and more reason for optimism? 29th of August this year, we provide the effective ceasefire. Yes, fragile, but from the 29th of September, we don't have a casualty of my troops from the shelling. Today, 40 minutes ago, my representative in Trilateral Contact Group signed up the new agreement for the withdrawal of heavy artillery and weapons from the touchline and providing the access of the special monitoring mission of the OSCE to the occupied territory. On the 2nd of October, we will have a Normandy format meeting in Paris where we have a very sophisticated and well-coordinated plan what we're waiting from this meeting, and we think that we try to do our best to implement all the details of the Minsk agreement. And believe me, if we can have a peace, now we have a ceasefire, but when we have a peace, our effective program of the reform would be much more effective. So we should take all our efforts, we should be united, and we should do our best to implement Minsk agreement, to implement the program of the reform, and to build up the new Ukraine. I'm a strong optimist. I think that we will bring to Ukraine peace, prosperity, democracy, and freedom, no doubt. Thank you very much indeed for that.
President. On this most remarkable and busy of days, we are truly delighted and honored that you spent part of it with us and you were so open to our students' questions and concerns. We want to reiterate our commitment to you that we will continue to foster cooperation, research, understanding on Ukraine, and we wish you all the success in implementing this ambitious reform agenda that you've laid out to us. Please visit us again soon. Thank you very much,
President
Poroshenko.
Thank you all of you. Sorry for not answering the question, but thank you for being together with Ukraine tonight. Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats as we escort the President and his delegation out of the building. Thank you.